"Release him," William Montgomery commanded, his voice slicing through the refined chatter of the charity gala. His piercing blue eyes locked onto the blonde woman in the shimmering gold dress, her hand firmly gripping another man's arm. The woman pivoted, her eyebrows arching in astonishment. "Pardon me?" William's palm flexed rhythmically at his side, a fidget born from years of sidestepping human interaction. "I stated, release him. Thomas is my business associate, and we must depart." Immediately, Thomas Reynolds positioned himself between them, his face a picture of embarrassment. "Will, meet Isabella Martinez, the event planner I mentioned to you." Isabella. William Montgomery's hand fell away from Thomas's arm. The enigmatic proprietor himself. "I've heard so much about you, though I was starting to wonder if you were merely a legend." Her tone was free of judgment, infused with authentic curiosity. William felt a wave of dizziness. 2 decades of meticulously built barriers were on the verge of collapsing beneath her unwavering stare. The expansive ballroom of his own hotel suddenly seemed cramped, stifling. "I need air," he murmured, pivoting sharply toward the balcony doors. He heard Thomas's voice drift behind him, offering an apology. "Don't take it personally. He's like that with everyone." The cool Chicago night air brushed against William's face as he held onto the stone balustrade. At 45, he had accumulated a fortune that most would envy, yet wealth had done little to fill the void left by Emma's passing. "You left this behind," a voice called out from behind him. William glanced over to see Isabella extending his forgotten champagne glass towards him. As he drew nearer, he noticed the warmth of her brown eyes, while her golden dress shimmered under the ballroom lights. "I don't require it," he replied with a rigid demeanor. "Then maybe you could use this." She extended a handkerchief in response. "You're sweating." William paused for a moment, then extended his hand toward it. Their fingers grazed against each other. It was his first genuine touch with a woman in 20 years. A surge coursed through him, raw and unsettling. Isabella observed his surprised response. "Are you okay, Mr. Montgomery?" "Fine," he said, his voice gruff as he wiped the sweat from his brow. "I just don't like crowds." "Yet you constructed a hotel meant to accommodate them," she noted, casually leaning against the balustrade next to him. William maintained a measured distance. "Business choices are not about personal inclinations. Is that your guiding principle?" Her question arrived with complete honesty. Just as he was about to respond, a young man dressed in hotel attire stepped through the balcony door. "Miss Martinez, there's a problem with the auction items." "Duty calls," she replied, adjusting her posture. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Montgomery. Maybe next time you'll really shake my hand." With a faint smile, she vanished back into the gala. William stood still, gazing at the handkerchief in his grasp, her fragrance still hanging in the evening air. The next morning, William found himself in his penthouse office, the view of Lake Michigan stretching out before him. The newspaper on his desk displayed a small photo from the gala, accompanied by the caption, "Reclusive developer William Montgomery makes rare public appearance." Thomas walked in without knocking, as was his custom. "You look terrible. Did you manage to get any sleep?" "Who is she?" William asked, sidestepping the inquiry. "Isabella, the finest event planner in Chicago." "What do you believe motivated my decision to bring her on board?" Thomas eased himself into a chair. "She organized that whole gala in just 3 weeks after our original planner backed out." William drummed his fingers on the desk. "I want to bring her on board." Thomas arched an eyebrow. "For what purpose?" "You don't organize events. I'm considering a shift in strategy. The Riverpoint property could gain from hosting a variety of promotional events." "What about the property that's already fully booked?" Thomas leaned in closer. "Will, what's happening? After 2 decades of steering clear of social events, you now find yourself wanting to host them?" William gazed out the window. Ever since Emma's car accident in their senior year of college, he had constructed his existence to steer clear of emotional connections. His standing as the hermit of Highland Tower was truly deserved. It's just business, Thomas. Nothing beyond that. This wouldn't have anything to do with how you were looking at Isabella last night, would it? William's jaw tightened. Just ask for her number, Thomas sighed. You realize she's not Emma, correct? The name lingered in the atmosphere around them. William's hands clenched into fists on the desk. Leave, he murmured softly. Once Thomas departed, William slid open his desk drawer and retrieved a petite photo frame. Emma's radiant smile gazed back at him. Eternally 22. Eternally cherished. I'm just hiring an event planner, he said to the photograph, as if Emma might voice her disapproval from the other side. Nothing will change. Yet, when his assistant called later that day to let him know that Isabella Martinez had agreed to meet the following week to discuss potential projects, William felt a spark he hadn't felt in 2 decades. Anticipation. Isabella Martinez stood in her office overlooking downtown Chicago, pinning fabric swatches to her mood board. Her assistant, Lucia, watched from the doorway. So you actually met him? Lucia said. The hermit of Highland Tower. Isabella smiled while she organized the blue and silver samples. He's not what I anticipated. What does it signify? He's injured, Isabella remarked, taking a step back to evaluate her efforts. Not cold as everyone claims. Lucia passed her a pile of messages. Regardless of his condition, he's called 3 times this morning. There's a discussion regarding bringing you on board for a series of events. Isabella paused. That's peculiar. According to Thomas, William Montgomery hasn't held a personal event in 20 years, Lucia completed. Since his fiancée passed away. Everyone is familiar with the tale. Isabella's phone vibrated with a message from Thomas. Apologies for Will's behavior last night. He struggles with interpersonal interactions. But he's genuinely interested in bringing you on board. At 38, Isabella had crafted her company, Stellar Events, from the ground up after stepping away from a career in marketing. She maintained a clear stance regarding challenging clients. Steer clear of them. Yet there was an intriguing depth in William Montgomery's haunted eyes that piqued her curiosity. Arrange the meeting, she instructed Lucia. However, limit it to just 30 minutes. On the subsequent Tuesday, Isabella made her entrance at Highland Tower right on schedule. The structure was a bold declaration. 60 stories of glass and steel that had transformed Chicago's skyline 5 years prior. William's assistant, a capable woman named Helen, guided her to his office. Ms. Martinez, William said, standing up from behind his desk. He reached out his hand, but then reconsidered, opting instead to motion towards a chair. Isabella observed the interrupted handshake, yet remained silent. Mr. Montgomery, your assistant indicated that you're looking to organize some events for a new property. Indeed, he replied, pushing a folder across the desk. The River Point Development. Isabella opened it, scanning the materials. This is already fully sold, according to the press release. Yes. Then why? Brand continuity, he replied swiftly, shaping the Montgomery development image for upcoming projects. Isabella observed him intently. His gaze wandered to her hands as she turned the pages. Mr. Montgomery, I usually collaborate with clients who possess well-defined goals. There's no need for promotional events for a fully booked property. William's jaw tightened. Are you rejecting the contract? I'm working to grasp it, she responded with composure. What do you truly desire? The question lingered in the air. William rose and moved toward the window. I've been urged to increase my visibility, he admitted at last. For professional purposes. Isabella shut the folder. Let's get straight to the point. You're looking for a sequence of occasions to build a public persona, but within managed settings. Is that correct? He turned, astonishment evident on his face. Yes. Then that's what we'll organize, she said, retrieving her tablet. However, I must caution you. I craft experiences that foster genuine connection. If you're seeking events where you can blend into the background, I'm not the one for you. A fleeting smile graced his lips. Thomas warned me you were direct. Is that the reason you reached out to me? Because Thomas suggested my services? William went back to his desk. No, the words appeared to catch him off guard. Isabella lingered, yet he provided no further words. All right, she said as she rose to her feet. I'll craft a proposal based on our discussion. We can meet next week to review it. This time, when she reached out her hand, William accepted it after a brief moment of pause. His hold was steady yet careful, as though making contact with another individual demanded focus. Next week, he concurred. Throughout the next month, Isabella collaborated with William weekly to craft a series of events. Their inaugural project would be an intimate dinner, highlighting local artists whose creations would be displayed in the River Point lobbies. What started as tense, uncomfortable planning sessions slowly transformed. Isabella observed how William gradually became more at ease around her. He started sharing his thoughts on wine choices and seating layouts. At one point, he even recommended a jazz quartet he had experienced at a corporate event long ago. Do you recall a musical group from back in the day? Isabella inquired, jotting down a note. I pay attention to the little things, he remarked casually. Today, they were settling on the dinner menu at a quaint cafe close to her workplace, marking William's initial proposal to meet beyond the confines of their offices. The chef suggests the duck, Isabella remarked, glancing over her notes. But I'm worried about dietary restrictions. When William remained silent, she glanced up to see him observing her. Is something the matter? She inquired. Why did you become an event planner? He asked suddenly. Isabella set down her pen, taken aback by the personal inquiry. I believe in the power of shared experiences. Corporate marketing was entirely digital, entirely remote. I aimed to craft instances where genuine connections could flourish, despite the reality that people can let you down. This inquiry unveiled deeper insights about William than he may have anticipated. Isabella reflected on David, her former partner, who had kept her waiting for 4 years with empty promises he never meant to fulfill. Especially then, she said, what made you choose to become a developer? To create something lasting, he replied without a moment's pause. Isabella beamed. You see, we share more in common than you think. You create environments where individuals can thrive and collaborate. I craft memories for them to cherish. Just then, William's phone rang, breaking the spell. Following a short exchange, he rose to his feet. There's an urgent situation at the North Shore project. I must leave immediately. Naturally, we can wrap things up tomorrow. In fact, he said, displaying an unusual hesitation, there's an exhibition debuting at the Palmer Gallery tomorrow evening. A few of the artists were showcased at the dinner. Are you interested in attending for the sake of gathering information? Isabella understood the invitation for what it truly represented, a deliberate crossing of the professional line they had upheld. For research, she agreed. I'll meet you there at 7. The Palmer Gallery buzzed with chatter as Chicago's art lovers mingled among the fresh exhibition pieces. Isabella made her entrance right at 7, donning a sleek black dress that distinguished her from the more flamboyant attendees of the gallery. William stood by the entrance, his height making him a noticeable figure. Did you come? He asked, relief evident in his voice. I said I would. Isabella took the program he presented. Shall we begin with the sculptures or the paintings? They wandered through the gallery, contemplating how each artist could contribute to their upcoming dinner event. Isabella observed that William kept a deliberate distance between them, despite the throng of people drawing nearer. What are your thoughts on this one? What do you think? She inquired, pausing in front of a canvas filled with swirling shades of blue and silver. William examined it carefully, then responded with consideration. It brings to mind Lake Michigan in winter, solitary yet stunning. I was just thinking that, Isabella replied, taken aback by his creative insight. When she noticed a colleague across the room and waved, William tightened beside her. We can leave if you're uncomfortable, she suggested. No, he replied with conviction. I'm fine. As they transitioned to the next exhibit, Isabella lightly brushed his arm to guide his gaze toward a specific sculpture. The fleeting touch sparked a noticeable reaction in him, yet neither of them mentioned it. William Montgomery, present at an art opening. Surely, the end of the world is upon us. A voice echoed from behind them. They glanced over to see Thomas coming closer. His eyebrows lifted in a dramatic display of surprise. William explained with a certain rigidity, "It's for the River Point event research." Thomas glanced back and forth, skeptical. "Naturally. Miss Martinez, could I have a moment of your time? You really need to meet this person." Before she could protest, Thomas led Isabella toward a cluster of guests, leaving William behind. "What are you doing?" Thomas asked softly, once they were beyond earshot. "My job," Isabella answered, organizing his gathering. Thomas's demeanor shifted to one of gravity. "Listen, Isabella, I've been friends with Will since our college days. He wouldn't act like this. Art galleries, public appearances, engaging discussions with captivating women. Not since Emma. I'm mindful of his past. Did you know he hasn't been in a relationship for 2 decades? And he can hardly stand physical touch." Thomas spoke even more softly. "Will feels like family to me. I refuse to witness him suffer once more." Isabella maintained a calm demeanor. "Mr. Reynolds, I am a skilled event planner engaged for a specific task. Any implications you're making are out of line." Thomas observed her closely. "I conducted a bit of research following the gala. You were involved with David Keller last year, another wealthy client." Isabella's cheeks burned with indignation. "That's not for you to worry about. Will's well-being is definitely my concern." Thomas's tone eased a bit. "Just take care with him. He's not as strong as he appears." Isabella turned back to William, leaving Thomas behind, her thoughts swirling. The rest of the evening unfolded in tense dialogue, as William picked up on her shift in demeanor, yet remained oblivious to its source. A distinct change unfolded in the weeks that followed. Isabella maintained a clear boundary in their interactions, arranging meetings solely when required, and ensuring Lucia's presence at each occasion. William appeared perplexed by the shift, yet he refrained from voicing any inquiries. Their premier dinner event was on the horizon, with only one last planning meeting remaining on the schedule. Isabella entered William's office, armed with a detailed agenda and a resolute focus on wrapping up the business efficiently. "Is everything all right?" William inquired as she hurried through the catering details. "Fine," Isabella replied, avoiding his gaze. "About the lighting design." "Isabella." His use of her first name brought her to a halt. "Did I do something wrong?" She finally met his gaze. "No, but I believe it's important for us to keep our professional boundaries clear." William's demeanor shifted, becoming more guarded. "Thomas had a conversation with you. Mr. Montgomery, what did he say to you?" William's voice carried a sharpness she had never encountered before. "It's of no consequence," she replied, collecting her documents. "The event is scheduled for next week. After that, Lucia can manage any follow-up events you need." William rose. "Join me for dinner tonight. Not for work, just dinner." The invitation lingered in the air between them. Isabella contemplated Thomas's caution, reflecting on David's treachery and her vow to maintain a clear boundary between her professional and personal life. "I don't believe that's a wise choice." "Why not?" "Because you're a client," she replied with conviction. "And because your business partner made it very clear that you don't do relationships." William's jaw clenched. "So he did speak with you. He was looking out for you." "I don't need protection," Isabella sighed. "William, I've worked too hard building my business to complicate things with a client. After our contract ends, if you still want that dinner, ask me again." She left his office, pondering whether he would. He did. The day following the triumphant River Point dinner, William reached out to extend an invitation for dinner at Aurelia, one of Chicago's most prestigious dining establishments. Despite her reservations, Isabella found herself accepting the invitation. The evening commenced with measured dialogue, discussing neutral subjects such as Chicago architecture and travel. However, as their main courses were served, William finally confronted the underlying tension. Thomas was out of line, he stated. Whatever he told you about me or my past, Isabella interrupted. He cares about you. And he's not entirely mistaken. You've constructed your existence around evading connections. I have witnessed it directly. That is evolving, William remarked softly. Because of me? Isabella shook her head. William, I ended a relationship last year with a man who couldn't commit after 4 years. I'm not interested in being anyone's experiment in human connection. William set down his fork. That's not what this is. As they exited the restaurant later, a camera flash caught them by surprise. A photographer shouted, Mr. Montgomery, is this your new girlfriend? William instinctively drew Isabella closer, protecting her with his presence as he hurried her to the waiting car. His arms stayed around her waist, his hand resting against her back, just like that electrifying moment at the gala. Once inside the car, neither made a move to distance themselves. William's hand lingered on her back, radiating warmth and steadiness. I haven't felt this close to anyone since Emma passed away, he admitted, his voice a mere whisper. I haven't wanted to be, Isabella said, turning to face him. What has shifted? You gave me a handkerchief, he said quietly, and I sensed something stir within me. Share with me the story of Emma, Isabella murmured gently. In the opulent penthouse, the Chicago skyline sparkled through the expansive windows. A week had slipped by since their encounter at the restaurant, marked by careful phone calls and hesitant arrangements. William's grip on his glass grew firmer. It was 20 years ago, yet it continues to define you, Isabella noted. I want to comprehend. William stepped toward the window, his silhouette faint against the darkness. We crossed paths during our first year at Northwestern. She immersed herself in the world of literature, while I navigated the realm of business. Everyone believed we were an odd pair, but we simply belonged together. He glanced back at Isabella. In my final year, I made a proposal. 2 months later, she was driving to meet me when a truck caught fire. She died instantly. I truly apologize, Isabella expressed with sincerity. I was meant to collect her that evening, William pressed on, his tone empty. But I remained late to complete a business plan. She approached me because I was too occupied to visit her. Isabella experienced a moment of clarity. You hold yourself responsible, don't you? He placed his glass down with deliberate care. Following the funeral, I found it unbearable to feel anyone's touch. Every interaction felt like a treachery. Eventually, individuals ceased their efforts. Isabella remarked, except Thomas. A fleeting smile graced William's lips. Thomas is quite persistent. He pulled me through those initial years, compelled me to keep going. Without him, I might have vanished entirely. Isabella stepped closer to him at the window. Is that why you never set him straight when he attempted to dissuade me? Because you think he's correct. Perhaps he is, William conceded. 20 years is a long time to sidestep life. Isabella paused, then softly laid her hand over his on the windowsill. It's never too late to start again. William gazed at their hands, then gradually turned his palm upward to hold hers. The next Tuesday, William stepped into Dr. Sarah Chen's office for his initial therapy session. This choice followed yet another restless night, reflecting on his deepening emotions for Isabella. What brings you here today, Mr. Montgomery? What brings you here today? Dr. Chen inquired after the introductions. I've met someone, William said simply, and I don't want to ruin it because I've spent 20 years hiding from my emotions. Dr. Chen nodded. That's a remarkably self-aware starting point. For the next hour, William recounted his past, the loss of Emma, his retreat into solitude, and the business empire he had constructed as a replacement for genuine relationships. And this new person in your life, Dr. Chen remarked, As their time came to an end, what sets her apart? William pondered the inquiry. She sees me. Not my wealth or my status, just me. And that's terrifying? Absolutely chilling, William confessed. But for the first time in 20 years, the fear seems worth facing. 2 months into their relationship, Isabella met William for lunch near her office. She found him already seated, engaged in a lively discussion with Thomas. Isabella, Thomas rose as she drew near. I owe you an apology. She raised an eyebrow. For delving into my history, or for cautioning me about William. Both, Thomas conceded. Will provided details regarding David Keller. I made unfair assumptions. Isabella acknowledged his apology with a nod, recognizing the transformation in William since they began their relationship. He appeared more engaged, less defensive. Once Thomas departed, William extended his hand across the table to grasp hers, a gesture that had previously felt unattainable for him. Thomas brought photos from college, he said, sliding an envelope toward her. He thought you might like to see who I was before. Isabella opened it to find pictures of a younger William, laughing, carefree, arm thrown casually around friend's shoulders. You were happy, she observed. I was, he agreed, and I'm starting to recall what that sensation is like. Later that evening, William got a call from his mother's caretaker in Michigan. Grace Montgomery found herself in a precarious situation, having taken a fall that necessitated surgery. I must leave, he said to Isabella. She's 82 and has been alone since my father passed away. Certainly, Isabella replied. Would you like some company? William gazed at her, taken aback. You'd come with me? If you want me to, she said simply. The 5-hour drive to Bloomfield Hills flew by as William recounted tales from his childhood. Isabella observed him unwind, the distance from Chicago seemingly peeling away layers of his meticulously crafted exterior. Grace Montgomery was a small woman with her son's striking blue eyes. From her hospital bed, she observed Isabella with open curiosity. So you're the woman Thomas talked about, she said directly. The one who made my son start answering his phone on Sundays. Mother, William cautioned. Grace dismissed him with a wave. Hush, William. Allow me to observe her. To Isabella, she said. He hasn't brought anyone home since Emma. Isabella held the older woman's gaze with unwavering resolve. I understand what Emma meant to him, Grace said, her expression softening. That's good, because grasping that is the first step to understanding my son. She reached for Isabella's hand. Now explain how you accomplished what none of us could in 2 decades. Later, as Grace rested after her successful surgery, William and Isabella strolled through the hospital grounds. Your mother is quite impressive, Isabella remarked. William laughed softly. She had to be. My father was even more stubborn than I am. You never talk about him. He passed away a decade ago, William remarked. Cardiac event. We had a disagreement about the business the week prior. Yet another connection I couldn't mend in time. Isabella halted her steps. William, you mustn't continue to bear the weight of your past. I'm doing my best, he replied, grasping her hand. That's the reason I began therapy. That's why I'm here with you now. As they made their way back to Grace's room, Isabella noticed that in his childhood town, enveloped by memories, William appeared more at ease than she had ever witnessed him in Chicago. Half a year into their relationship, Isabella and William had found a cozy routine. The weekdays were dedicated to their individual pursuits, while the evenings and weekends were cherished moments spent in each other's company. William persisted with his therapy sessions, slowly unearthing aspects of himself that had been overshadowed by grief. On a brisk autumn morning, Isabella perched at her desk, poring over contracts when her phone chimed. An international number appeared on the caller ID. Isabella Martinez, she replied. Mrs. Martinez, this is Jacqueline Dubois from Maison Events in Paris. I'm reaching out regarding your application. Isabella felt a wave of tension wash over her. 3 months prior, Before her bond with William had intensified, she had submitted her application for a coveted creative director role with the esteemed French company. I'm pleased to inform you that you've been selected for final interviews, Jacqueline continued. We would be pleased if you could join us in Paris next week. Next week. Isabella glanced at her calendar and repeated. She and William had planned a weekend at his lake house. Is that an issue? Jacqueline inquired.
No, Isabella replied swiftly.
I'm just taken aback. I submitted my application a while back. The selection process has encountered delays. The position is set to commence in January, overseeing all our European operations, marking a significant advancement from your current regional focus. After arranging the details, Isabella hung up, feeling a mix of emotions. The position in Paris had always been her dream job before William. The thought of relocating across the ocean from him stirred a deep sense of longing. That evening, she made the decision to share her thoughts with him. William arrived at Isabella's apartment, carrying takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. I brought extra spring rolls, he announced, setting down the bags. He paused, noticing her expression. What's wrong? Isabella took a deep breath. I received a call today from Maison Events in Paris. They want me to come for a final interview next week. William went still. Paris. It's for the creative director of their European division, she explained. I submitted my application 3 months ago, prior to us being us. Would you need to relocate there? His tone was deliberately even. Yes. The position starts in January. William nodded slowly, unpacking the food with mechanical precision. You ought to attend the interview.
William.
It's a wonderful chance, he remarked, avoiding her gaze. You've created remarkable events from the ground up. Expanding into Europe is the natural progression. Isabella moved in closer. I am not obligated to accept it. My business is established here. My life is rooted here. With me. William finally met her gaze, his expression cautious. Yes. With you, she declared resolutely. William turned away, arranging containers on the counter. You shouldn't make career decisions based on a 6-month relationship. Isabella felt as if she'd been slapped. Is that all this means to you? Just a 6-month relationship? That's not what I intended. So, what was your intention? She challenged. William's jaw clenched. I intended to convey that I won't be the cause of you abandoning your aspirations. I refuse to include that in my collection of regrets. Isn't that something I should decide? Certainly, he replied with a hint of formality. You ought to visit Paris. Conduct the interview. Take a moment to reflect on the possibilities. We can sort it out later. The meticulously rebuilt barriers returned to his gaze. Isabella sensed the pullback, the instinctive shielding. Just like that. What do you want me to say, Isabella? She asked quietly. The idea of you relocating to another continent fills me with dread. After 20 years of careful isolation, the thought of losing you makes me want to retreat once more? His voice grew louder with each inquiry. Because it does. Then fight for us, Isabella said, her voice trembling with emotion. Don't just step back and make it easy for me to leave. William ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I don't know how to do this, Isabella. I've spent 2 decades avoiding exactly this kind of pain, and I spent 4 years with a man who never fully committed, she countered. So I understand fear, William, but I thought what we had was worth the risk. William's phone rang, interrupting the tense moment. After a brief conversation, he hung up with a sigh. Emergency at the Seattle project. I must take care of this. He approached the door, then hesitated. Take the interview, Isabella. We'll discuss it when you return. After he left, Isabella called Lucia, her voice trembling with tears. He just shut down, she explained, as if the last 6 months were erased from existence. Allow him some time, Lucia suggested. This is how he behaves when he's afraid. I don't want to go to Paris, If it means losing him, Isabella admitted. Then tell him that, Lucia said simply. But first, ensure it's truly what you desire. The following morning, Thomas stormed into William's office without warning. What on earth are you doing? He insisted. William remained focused on his computer. I'm working. I just had coffee with Lucia. Isabella is heartbroken. She received a job offer in Paris, William stated without emotion. I advised her to accept it. Thomas sank into a chair. After all these years, you continue to pursue it. What are you doing? Pushing people away before they have the chance to leave you. Thomas leaned in closer. Will, I said, I saw you fade away after Emma passed. You created all of this. He waved his hand to encompass the office. Instead of a life. And now that you finally have a chance at happiness, you're sabotaging it. William's expression hardened. I'm being pragmatic. Isabella has a career opportunity that could shape her future. I won't hinder her progress. Did you ask what she wants? She doesn't know what she wants, William snapped. She has recently embarked on the journey of establishing her business. She can't give that up for me. That's her decision, Thomas countered. Not yours. William turned to the window, his back to Thomas. I can't bear the thought of losing someone again, Thomas said. I wouldn't survive it. Thomas's voice grew gentler. The only way to ensure you won't lose her is to distance yourself first. Is that truly what you desire? When William didn't respond, Thomas rose to depart. At the door, he paused. Emma would feel let down. Will, she never wished for this fragmented existence for you. Once Thomas departed, William remained still, gazing at the skyline of Chicago. At last, he reached for his phone and dialed Helen. Book me on the next flight to Paris, he said, and get me Isabella's hotel information. Rain fell steadily as William's taxi crawled through Paris traffic. He'd spent the 8-hour flight rehearsing what to say to Isabella, but now, as the car approached her hotel, his carefully prepared speech seemed inadequate. The Hotel Lafayette stood elegantly against the gray Parisian sky. William settled the fare and stepped out of the vehicle, instantly soaked by the deluge. Fitting, he mused darkly. His dramatic gesture was already soaked. At the reception desk, he paused. I'm searching for Isabella Martinez. Is she available? The clerk verified the system. Yes, sir. She came back an hour ago. Should I reach out to her room? William felt his courage wavering. No. Could you tell me which direction the Maison Events office is? I believe she had an interview there. After receiving the directions, William stepped back into the rain. He needed to envision where Isabella could construct her new existence, to grasp what he was requesting her to relinquish. The Maison Events headquarters occupied a stunning, historic building near the Seine. Through the windows, William could see fashionable professionals navigating through tastefully decorated offices. It was precisely the kind of success Isabella had earned. His phone vibrated, with a message from Thomas. Did you locate her? Not yet, William replied. I'm having second thoughts. The reply was prompt. Don't you even think about backing down. She's worth the risk. William smiled despite himself. Thomas had always pushed him forward when he wanted to retreat. Taking a deep breath, he turned back toward the hotel. Isabella swung her door open on the third knock, her eyes widening in disbelief. William, what are you doing here? He stood dripping in the hallway, his prepared speech slipping from his mind. I couldn't allow you to face this by yourself. She stepped back, allowing him inside. Her hotel room was small but charming, with a window overlooking a Parisian street cafe. How was the interview? He inquired, striving for a sense of normalcy. I didn't go, Isabella said quietly. William froze in the act of removing his wet jacket. What? I canceled this morning. She moved to the window, gazing out at the rain. I came to a realization during the flight. I've dedicated my life to crafting environments that foster connection, yet I've hesitated to forge genuine connections myself. Is it because of David? Isabella nodded. David and those who came before him. I kept one foot out the door, concentrating on the next career move. But with you, she turned to face him. With you, I want to stay. William crossed the room in 3 strides, taking her hands in his. I came here to tell you to take the job, that we would find a way to make it work. Visits, video calls, whatever it took. Because I love you, Isabella, and I desire your dreams just as deeply as I desire you. Tears welled in her eyes. You love me? Yes, he replied with a quiet certainty. I believe I have, ever since you offered me that handkerchief at the gala. Why didn't you mention anything earlier? William's smile held a touch of regret. 20 years of silence is a difficult habit to shake off. Isabella nestled closer, her head finding a resting place against his chest. I love you too, and my greatest aspiration isn't Paris or even extraordinary happenings. It's creating something genuine with you. There's something else you should know, she continued, pulling back to meet his eyes. The real reason I canceled the interview, William tensed. What is it? Isabella inhaled deeply. I'm pregnant. William blinked, convinced he must have misheard. You're what? Expecting. Approximately 8 weeks. Her voice remained calm, yet her hands quivered in his. I discovered it the day before the call in Paris. I was grappling with how to share it with you when I distanced myself, William completed, his complexion drained. Isabella, I'm truly sorry. I arrived in Paris to reflect, she went on, to determine what I truly desired before sharing it with you. That's why I canceled the interview. William guided her to sit on the edge of the bed, kneeling before her. A baby, he whispered, all replacing shock. Our little one. Are you feeling joyful? She inquired with hesitation. In response, William laid his hand softly on her abdomen. 20 years ago, I lost everything I thought mattered. I locked myself away, convinced that was safer. He looked up at her, eyes bright with unshed tears. Yet you discovered me, Isabella, and now you're offering me a family I never imagined I could have. Isabella gently placed her hand over his. Is that a yes? William's laughter echoed, a melody of unadulterated happiness. That's a definite yes. 1 year later, William stood at the entrance of the ballroom in his Chicago hotel, watching guests arrive for the annual charity gala. So much had changed since he'd stood in this same spot the previous year, hiding from human contact. Thomas approached, champagne in hand. Large audience this evening. William acknowledged. Isabella truly excelled in her planning. Speaking of Isabella, Thomas said, is tonight still the night? William patted his pocket where a small velvet box rested. If I don't lose my nerve, after everything you've experienced this year, proposing should feel effortless. The last 12 months had truly been life-changing. William and Isabella had welcomed their daughter, Emma Grace Montgomery, just 3 months ago. Becoming parents had nudged William beyond his protective shell, compelling him to embrace the chaos and joy that comes with human connection. Thomas lifted his glass. To new beginnings. William clinked his water glass against Thomas's champagne, celebrating the bond of old friends who never gave up. Across the room, William noticed Isabella in a gold dress, reminiscent of the one she had worn a year prior. She was engaged in conversation with his mother, who had relocated to Chicago after her recovery to be closer to her granddaughter. Isabella glanced upward, meeting his gaze. She smiled and approached him. The gala is a success, she said, reaching him. Everyone's discussing the new scholarship program. William grasped her hand. I have something to ask you. He guided her to the familiar balcony, the very spot where their conversation had first begun. The Chicago night unfolded before them, a vibrant tapestry of lights and endless possibilities. 1 year ago, I stood here a different man, William started. Isolated, afraid to feel, convinced that life had nothing left to offer me. He took both her hands in his. And then you gave me a handkerchief. Isabella smiled at the recollection. You seemed to be in need of it. I needed you, he corrected. I just didn't know it yet. He reached into his pocket and withdrew the small box. Isabella Martinez, you have revived my spirit. Will you be my wife? Yes, she replied without a moment's pause. 1,000 times yes. As he gently slipped the ring onto her finger, William tenderly placed his other hand on her back. The identical gesture captured in numerous photographs of them throughout the past year. A touch that once seemed impossible now felt like returning to a familiar embrace. The festivities within the gala persisted. Thomas raised a toast to the newly engaged couple. Grace Montgomery dabbed tears from her eyes, and in Isabella's apartment nearby, baby Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her existence had helped heal a 20-year wound. William pulled Isabella close, no longer afraid of touch, of love, of loss. Thank you, he murmured softly into her hair. For what? She inquired. For granting me a renewed opportunity at life. Dad, have you seen my graduation tickets? Emma Grace Montgomery called from the hallway of the family's Lakeshore Drive apartment. William looked up from his desk. He had been examining the proposals for Montgomery Development's latest eco-friendly housing initiative. Look at the kitchen counter. Your mother arranged everything last night. At 20, Emma was the ideal fusion of her parents. William's blue eyes, and Isabella's warm smile, his analytical mind, and her creative spirit, her acceptance to Northwestern School of Business, had been a point of pride, though William still felt a twinge of anxiety each time she drove to campus. Old fears died hard. Isabella stood in the doorway, adorned for the charity gala they would be attending later. 2 decades of marriage had etched delicate lines around her eyes. Yet to William, she radiated beauty more than ever. I found them, she said, holding up an envelope. Exactly as I predicted. William leaned in to kiss her cheek. I always believed in you. Emma entered, already dressed in her graduation gown for the family photos Isabella had insisted on taking before the ceremony. How do I look? She asked, twirling. Like the future leader of Montgomery Development, William declared with pride. Isabella adjusted Emma's tassel. Only if that's what she desires. Keep our agreement in mind. Follow your heart, not expectations, Emma recited with a grin. Don't worry, Mom. I actually enjoy business, unlike Dad, who was only focused on building something lasting. She remembers everything, William complained good-naturedly. Yes, I do, Emma confirmed, including that tonight is your anniversary of meeting, not marriage. 21 years since Mom handed you a handkerchief at a charity gala. Isabella chuckled. She certainly got my knack for remembering details. The doorbell chimed, signaling the arrival of Thomas and his wife, Laura, who had started dating him at William and Isabella's wedding and finally tied the knot 3 years later. They came along with their teenage sons. The graduate, Thomas exclaimed, hugging Emma. Ready to make your father unbearably proud. Always, Emma replied. As the extended family gathered for photos, William stepped back, watching Isabella direct everyone into position. 20 years ago, he couldn't have envisioned this moment. A home brimming with affection, joy, and a delightful whirlwind of activity. Grace Montgomery, now in her 90s, but still sharp, beckoned William over. Do you recall the time you took Isabella to Michigan? She asked, her voice softer than in years past. I knew then she was the one who would save you from yourself. William gently squeezed his mother's hand. You were right, as always. After taking photographs, they got ready to head out for Emma's graduation ceremony. In the brief stillness, while others collected their belongings, William discovered Isabella in their bedroom, adorning herself with the diamond earrings he had gifted her for their 15th anniversary. "Happy anniversary," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. His hand rested on her back in the exact position, captured in countless photographs over their years together, a touch that had once been impossible for him. Isabella inclined toward him. 21 years since you glared at me for touching Thomas's arm. I was envious, William confessed with a grin. At that time. And now? She inquired, as she turned in his embrace. Now I'm grateful, he said simply. Every day. Isabella's fingers brushed against his cheek. A gesture so familiar. It felt like an extension of him, from 2 decades of solitude to 2 decades of chaos. The best trade I ever made, William replied. From the living room, Emma called, Mom, Dad, we're going to be late. They exchanged a knowing smile at their daughter's eagerness, a quality she'd clearly inherited from both of them. As they approached the waiting family, William contemplated the journey. The man who hadn't embraced a woman in 20 years was now enveloped by family. With his daughter graduating, his wife of 2 decades by his side, and a life richer than he'd ever envisioned. Are you prepared? Isabella inquired, gently sliding her hand into his. William nodded, squeezing her hand in response. He had dedicated the initial years of his existence to the fear of intimacy, firmly believing that solitude offered a more secure refuge. The latter part had shown him that love, in spite of its dangers, was invariably worth pursuing. Ready, he confirmed, stepping forward with his family into the future he'd once been too afraid to want.